Welcome back to D Gemini Show. I'm D Gemini. This is the second segment of I Am. And I must go back because this is something that I was told at 18 months by my parents, is that I would sit down on the floor in our apartment and watch everyone walk around. And they would look at me and they would position me to crawl, and they would say, crawl, crawl, baby. And I would watch. I would just watch everyone walk. You know, my parents, they always had lots of company. They had a lot of friends and family over frequently. You know, and we lived in an apartment building, like I said, for the first 5 years. So there were always neighbors. It was like close-knit, you know. It was a neighborhood. Yeah, that's what it was. So anyway, they said it wasn't 18 months. I think they said I was 9 months old, 10 months, maybe even 11 months. I think my mama said I was 11 months old. Okay, I got it now. She said I was 11 months old, and I got up one day and I just started walking. She said I refused to crawl. I guess I was fairly stubborn. She said I would not crawl, but one day at 11 months old, I got up and I walked. And I believe that about myself. That's who I am. So, my father and I were very close. He taught me to ride a bicycle when we moved to 215th Street. He taught me to ride a bike because Christmas was a big thing at my house. And I never did like Christmas because it was a lot of pressure for me to be happy about Christmas, and I didn't understand what Christmas was. I didn't get it. All it was a time for me to get a lot of stuff, and I had to pose with it and smile while they took the pictures with me with the big dolls and the big bicycles and stuff. And no one that I knew got as many gifts as I got. So that, my friends never did like me for that, you know. They like, you and all these Christmas, look at Denise, and they run over my house, you know, to play with the gifts, and then I'd go to their house to play with the gifts that they got, and they only got a few gifts. So that was Christmas. But like I said, back to the bike riding. Daddy taught me to ride a bike. Daddy taught me everything. I am a daddy's girl. Always with Dad. I went with Dad to work as a child before, you know, I started school and stuff. I went with Dad to work. And on my days off, like vacations and holidays for school, I would go spend the day with Dad at work. Dad was a truck driver. He drove a truck daily around the tri-state area and then came back home every evening. He worked in Jersey, Secaucus, at a paper company, and he let me drive the forklift. I was driving a forklift at like 7. I would sit around talking on the phone. I learned to use the switchboard. Back then there was a switchboard that you plug in to receive phone calls and to make phone calls at an office. And I always used the phone book to make phone calls at like 7. Like I said, 8 years old. I remember I was actually 7. I called my second grade teacher, Miss Margaret. I found her phone number in the phone book, and I called her and I said, hey, Miss Margaret, it's Denise. And she was like, don't you ever call me. Don't you ever call me again at home. How did you get my number? And I said, in the white pages. She was furious. Needless to say, she called my parents in and they had a meeting. My parents were always being called to school about something that I'd done. I peed my pants, I remember, in the first grade. That's the only thing I remember about the first grade, is I remember us going on a trip to Dairy Queen, an outing or whatever. We went to Dairy Queen like once a week or whatever. And I told my teacher, now I remember her name was Miss Reed. That's my first grade teacher's name, Miss Reed. I can see her face now. I told her that I had to pee. I had to go to the bathroom. And she told me to hold it. And I told her again I had to go to the bathroom. She told me to hold it. I told her no. And I stood there and I proceeded to urinate in the Dairy Queen. Well, needless to say, they called my parents. So anyway, I learned to ride a bicycle. My dad taught me to swim. He actually took me to get swimming lessons at 6 because we always went to the beach, St. Croix. I needed to know just how to swim. So I learned to swim. I swim like a fish. And one time we were at the beach, and I remember seeing a man, a huge man, riding on a huge horse. The horse was white. The man was dark. He had lots of hair, and he went riding out into the ocean on the horse. And then he took like what looked like a sword, but it was actually one of these. It was actually, I believe, an aloe vera stem from an aloe plant, you see. And he picked up one and he cracked it open and he mushed it all over his hair. And then he swung it out. And it was like he was shampooing his hair. And then he just ride back in, you know, and he went on his way. And I remember that. Dad was like, look, niece, look at the man. That was a nice day. I don't remember how old, probably 7. A lot of things happened when I was 7 and 8 that I do remember very vividly. Also, I want to touch on, I already talked about me starting smoking in the 2nd grade. Once again, back to Miss Reed. She was mean. I remember that about her. She was one of those women I would call just cold, and she looked frigid, you know, pale, thin, like a bird, kind of, you know, kind of cold. But yeah, I did not like Miss Reed. Imagine that's probably why it's easy for me to have forgotten about her. But I do remember her now because of that Dairy Queen incident. Okay, I was introduced to sex in the 2nd grade by a Cancer. I've mentioned her before. This little girl in the 2nd grade was so developed. Maybe she'd been left back a time or two. I don't know. But what I do know is her breasts were like huge. Okay? They were really huge. And for some reason, she taught a friend of mine, well, better not mention name, but a little friend of mine, let's call her LG. She taught her how to pleasure her in that way, because we looked at this little girl like our mom. And it's, you know, it's really interesting now that I remember that she is a Cancer. But yeah, we looked at her that way. She taught her how to do it. And then, you know, I caught them one day in the bathroom, because I guess we spent a lot of time in the bathroom smoking cigarettes in the 2nd grade. And I caught her in the bathroom, caught them in the bathroom. What are y'all doing? I'm curious. She's like, here, you want to try it? Here, try it. You know, lick it, suck it. That was my introduction to sex, I guess, because it wasn't really sex, but it was something that we did as little girls. That's it. It was just about the breastises. And it was not until the 4th grade that LG, she's like, I gotta show you something. And she showed me something in the bathroom under her skirt with her little finger. And I was like, ooh. And she said, try it. And I tried it, and I liked it. TMI. But yeah, those was my introductions. Well, those were 2 of my introductions to sex. 2nd grade, 4th grade. And then again, I'm not sure. Maybe 4th or 5th grade. A neighbor, my next door neighbor, not a neighbor. I only had 2 neighbors on either side. My friends on the right were girls, and then there was a boy that lived on the left. He was maybe 4 years older than me, 4 or 5 years older, and he would come over and play with me. And that's what that was, introduction to sex. At the time, it wasn't sex, or maybe I don't remember. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I didn't know if I liked it or I didn't. You know, he would hold my arm, he would twist my arm behind my back, and it hurt. And he like, I'll twist it harder if you move, don't move. So I didn't move, of course. Because eventually, you know, it felt good. I started to look forward to him coming over to play with me. Such is life. Not sure, like I said, if there was any real penetration. I don't think so. Because I think I remember always like, no, don't do that, you know. But everything else, okay. That's how I learned. Not to mention, this is high school, so I won't go that far yet. So we're still, I'm no older than 12 in my mind, going back to 6. I was born into what they call the message. So it's the message, you know, of Jesus Christ. I was born into that message. But the message was more than, well, it wasn't. It was the message of Jesus Christ, the Adventist message, Seventh-day Adventist, to be exact. I was born into that message because shortly before my birth, before my parents received me, they converted from being Baptist to being Seventh-day Adventist. So when I was born into this message, and that was all I knew, you know, as a child, was home and church. And that was it. And then schools entered, like I said, about 5. But, you know, my formative years were home and church. Church. There was a group called the Pathfinder Group, and they were awesome. They were what you call a drum and bugle corps. And they were awesome. They were number 1 in everything that they did. They wore golden brown. I wanted to be a golden ambassador. It was a Pathfinder group, and I wanted to be a Pathfinder. Now, I was supposed, the legal age, like the age to be a Pathfinder was, I think, 9 years old. And I was only 5. And I kept wanting to be a Pathfinder, telling everybody I wanted to be a Pathfinder. I wanted to be a Pathfinder because I talked a lot when I was a child. And I never was quiet. My parents would try to pay me money because I guess they thought that I thought money was a big deal, but I don't know. But they would try to pay me money and stay. I guess I did because I wanted some money. And they'd say, can you please be quiet for 5 minutes? I never got the money. So back to the Pathfinder thing. I wanted to be a Pathfinder. I wanted to be a Pathfinder. Eventually, they let me in at 6. They let me in the Pathfinder Club. I was a Pathfinder for 10 years. I learned to march, hold a flag. I learned the Bible because we studied the Bible. We memorized scripture. I learned to cook. I learned about nature. Oh boy. I learned about animals. You know, we learned a lot. I learned how to have fortitude because we marched in parades that were often times 3 hours, 4 hours long. And, you know, we marched. We never broke rank. And breaking rank would be to fall out of line, you know, to say like, my back hurt, my leg hurt, my head hurt, you know, my toe hurt. My ankle hurt. No, we did not break rank. We did our thing. Those were the best years of my life. I was a Pathfinder from ages 6 to 16. Those were the best years of my life. I also played the piano during those years. And I was instructed by the same person that let me into the Pathfinder Club. Her name is Sister Reed. She let me into the Pathfinder Club. It was actually Sister Stevenson back then. She got married in the interim. But Sister Roma Sister Roma Stevenson Reed. She let me into the Pathfinder Club. She talked my parents into buying me a piano so that I could take piano lessons. And she taught me from the ages of 6 to 16. She taught me. And I love her for that. I love her. I will always love her. She's 90 now, by the way. I spoke with her recently. She's doing great. Anyway, okay. Pathfinder years were awesome. Not only did I learn a lot, I met a lot of people. I became close with a lot of people. I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends in Pathfinders. And we're still friends to this day. Those that are still alive, even those, some of those have passed away, and we were friends till the end. And this will be the end for today.